My boyfriend ignored my miscarriage until the EMT said if she were mine. The cramping started at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I knew immediately that something was wrong. I'd been pregnant for 12 weeks, long enough to start believing it was real, long enough to have already started thinking about names and nursery colors. Long enough to feel like my body was finally doing something miraculous instead of just existing. But as I lay there in the dark next to Marcus, feeling like someone was twisting a knife in my abdomen, I knew that miracle was ending. "Marcus," I whispered, shaking his shoulder. "Something's wrong. I think I need to go to the hospital." He grunted and rolled away from me. "Take some Tylenol, Sarah. It's probably just normal pregnancy stuff." The next cramp hit like a freight train, doubling me over. I stumbled to the bathroom, and that's when I saw the blood. So much blood that my knees buckled and I had to grip the sink to stay upright. "Marcus!" I called out, louder this time. "Please, I need help." "Jesus Christ," he muttered from the bedroom. I could hear his game controller clicking. He'd fallen back asleep and woken up to continue his raid in World of Warcraft. At 2:30 in the morning. While I was bleeding out our baby in the next room. "Can you please call 911? My voice cracked as another wave of pain crashed over me. "Something's really wrong. Don't be dramatic. Women have been having periods since the beginning of time. Just walk it off. Walk it off." Like I was complaining about a scraped knee instead of losing the pregnancy we'd supposedly planned together. The pregnancy he'd seemed excited about when I told him 2 months ago, spinning me around the kitchen and talking about how our kid was going to be a gaming prodigy. I slumped against the bathroom wall, my pajama pants soaked through with blood, and realized I was completely alone. The person who was supposed to love me, protect me, care about my well-being, he was 15 feet away clicking through spell rotations while I miscarried on our bathroom floor. The cramping intensified, and I bit my lips so hard I tasted copper. I couldn't tell where the physical pain ended and the emotional devastation began. Every contraction felt like my body was systematically destroying my hopes, and the sound of Marcus's game, the clicking, the occasional "come on, you idiots," at his teammates, created a soundtrack of abandonment that I'll never forget. By 3:15 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I crawled to where I'd left my phone charging in the hallway and dialed 911 myself, whispering so Marcus wouldn't hear and get annoyed that I was overreacting. "911, what's your emergency?" "I'm having a miscarriage," I managed between contractions. "I'm bleeding heavily and my boyfriend won't," I stopped myself. What was I going to say? That my boyfriend of 3 years couldn't be bothered to pause his game while I lost our baby? "I just need help." 1847 Maple Street, apartment 3B. "Ma'am, we're sending an ambulance right now. Stay on the line with me." As I lay there on the bathroom floor, phone pressed to my ear while a stranger showed me more compassion than the man I lived with, I had no idea that this night would change everything. That in a few hours, an EMT would say something that would open my eyes to exactly who Marcus really was. And what I was going to do about it. The paramedics arrived at 3:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I'd been staring at my phone, timing the contractions like the pregnancy app had taught me to do for labor, except this wasn't labor, this was everything ending. I heard them knock, then ring the doorbell. Marcus's game audio went silent, and I heard his chair creak. Yeah, he called through the door, not even getting up to open it. "Paramedics. We got a call about a medical emergency." "Oh, right. Come in, I guess." "She's in the bathroom being dramatic about some cramps." Being dramatic. He actually said that to the EMTs. I heard footsteps and hushed voices, then a knock on the bathroom door. "Ma'am? This is Jake with the fire department. Can we come in?" "Please," I whispered. 2 paramedics entered, Jake, who looked about 30 with kind eyes, and his partner Lisa, a woman probably in her 40s with graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. They took one look at me curled on the floor in a pool of blood and their entire demeanor shifted. "How far along were you?" Lisa asked gently, already pulling supplies from her bag. 12 weeks. Well, I was 12 weeks yesterday. The past tense hit me like a physical blow. Jake was checking my pulse while Lisa started in 4. Professional, efficient, but gentle. "When did the bleeding start?" "Around 2:17. It's been getting worse." "And how long have you been on the floor?" I hesitated, embarrassed. "About an hour and a half." Lisa's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Is someone here with you?" "My boyfriend. Marcus. He's..." I gestured vaguely toward the living room, where I could now hear him explaining to someone, probably his raid team, that he'd be back on in a few minutes. Jake and Lisa exchanged a look that I caught even through my pain-induced fog. "We're going to get you to the hospital," Jake said. "Lisa's going to get the stretcher." As Lisa left, I heard her voice in the hallway, though she was clearly trying to keep it low. "Sir, we're going to need to transport her to Methodist General. This is a serious medical emergency." "How long is that going to take?" Marcus asked. "I'm in the middle of something important here." There was a pause. A long pause. "Important," Lisa repeated, and I could hear the ice in her voice even from the bathroom. When Jake returned with the stretcher, his partner was behind him, and both of their faces had changed. The professional compassion was still there for me, but there was something else now, a barely contained anger that seemed to fill the small bathroom. "Let's get you comfortable," Jake said, helping me onto the stretcher. As we moved through the apartment, I saw Marcus sitting back at his computer, headset already on. "Babe, call me when you know what's up," he said without turning around. "I'll probably be asleep though, so just text." That's when Jake stopped the stretcher. Completely stopped, right in the middle of our living room. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "Did you just tell your girlfriend, who is actively miscarrying your child, to text you updates?" Marcus finally turned around, looking annoyed at the interruption. "Look, I don't know what she told you, but she's being super dramatic about some normal pregnancy stuff. Women have cramps. It's not exactly breaking news." Jake stared at him for a long moment. Then he looked down at me, and his expression softened completely. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "if she were mine, I'd never let her suffer alone like this." The words hit me like lightning. Simple. Direct. True. And in that moment, lying on a stretcher in my own living room, I finally saw Marcus clearly. The ride to the hospital was a blur of sirens and gentle voices. Lisa held my hand while Jake drove, and she kept talking to me about the weather, about her daughter who was studying to be a teacher, about anything except what was happening to my body. It was exactly what I needed, though I didn't realize it until later. Your boyfriend, she said carefully as we pulled into the hospital bay. How long have you two been together? 3 years next month. The words felt strange in my mouth. We'd been planning to celebrate our anniversary. I'd already bought him a gaming chair he'd been wanting, expensive, ergonomic, the works. It was sitting in my closet at home, still in its box. Lisa squeezed my hand. Honey, in my 22 years doing this job, I've seen a lot of partners react to medical emergencies. Fear, panic, even fainting, that's all normal. But what I saw back there. She shook her head. That wasn't normal. Dr. Martinez confirmed what I already knew at 5:23 a.m. Complete miscarriage. The baby, my baby, was gone. She was gentle but direct, explaining the procedures, the recovery time, the follow-up appointments. I nodded and signed papers and tried to process that the future I'd been imagining had just evaporated. Is there someone we can call for you? She asked. The father, maybe? Family? I thought about Marcus, probably still rating, maybe wondering if I'd remember to pick up his energy drinks on my way home from the hospital. No, I said. There's no one. But that wasn't entirely true. At 6:15 a.m., I called my sister Emma in Portland. Sarah? What's wrong? Her voice was thick with sleep, but alert. That's the thing about people who actually love you, they know when something's wrong just from how you say their name. I lost the baby. The words came out flat, emotionless. I think I was still in shock. Oh, honey. Oh, I'm so sorry. Where are you? Where's Marcus? And that's when I started crying. Really crying, for the first time since the cramping started. Because Emma's first instinct was to ask where Marcus was, assuming he'd be there with me. The way a normal person would be. He's at home, I managed. Playing his game. He told me to text him updates. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. I'm sorry, Emma said finally, her voice deadly quiet. Did you just tell me that your boyfriend sent you to the hospital alone while you were having a miscarriage so he could keep playing video games? When she put it like that, it sounded even worse. Emma, I'm booking a flight right now. Don't you dare go back to that apartment alone. You don't have to. Sarah Elizabeth, listen to me. I'm looking at flights. There's one at 11:30 a.m. that gets me there by 2:15 p.m. your time. I'm getting on it. And when I get there, we're going to have a very serious conversation about your boyfriend. After we hung up, I lay in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling tiles, counting the little holes in each square. 847 holes in the tile directly above my head. I focused on counting because it was easier than thinking about Jake's words. If she were mine, I'd never let her suffer alone like this. At 8:45 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. How much longer? I ordered pizza but forgot you're not here to pay for it. Need you to send money to my Venmo. I stared at that message for a full minute. Not are you okay, or what did the doctor say, or even I'm sorry. He wanted me to send him money for pizza while I was in the hospital recovering from losing our baby. That's when I knew Emma was right. We were definitely going to have a very serious conversation. But first, I was going to have an even more serious conversation with myself about exactly who I'd been sharing my life with for the past 3 years. The discharge process took forever, insurance paperwork, medication instructions, follow-up appointment scheduling. Dr. Martinez prescribed pain medication and something for the cramping, plus iron supplements for the blood loss. She also handed me a pamphlet about grief counseling and support groups for pregnancy loss. Take care of yourself, she said, and I could tell she meant more than just the physical recovery. You've been through a trauma. Don't minimize that. At 11:47 a.m., I finally made it home. The apartment smelled like pepperoni and energy drinks. Marcus was exactly where I'd left him 8.5 hours ago, at his computer, headset on, completely absorbed in his game. 3 empty pizza boxes sat stacked on the floor next to his chair. Oh hey, he said without looking at me. Did you remember to Venmo me? The delivery guy was a dick about the tip. I stood there holding a bag of medications and discharge papers, still wearing the hospital bracelet around my wrist. Marcus. Hang on, we're about to down this boss. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Fuck, whoever's playing the healer is trash. Sarah, can you grab me another Red Bull? I had a miscarriage. Yeah, I know. That sucks. Red Bull? The casual dismissal hit me like a slap. That sucks. Like I told him my favorite restaurant was closed, not that our baby had died. That's it? That's all you have to say? He finally paused his game and swiveled around to face me, clearly annoyed at the interruption. What do you want me to say? It happened. We can try again later. Now can you please let me finish this raid? We've been working on this boss for 3 weeks. I was in the hospital for 8 hours, Marcus. 8 hours. And I texted you asking how long it would take. He shrugged like this proved he'd been attentive. Look, I'm sorry you're upset, but getting emotional about it isn't going to change anything. These things happen. My mom had like 3 miscarriages before she had me. Did your dad tell her to walk it off? His face shifted slightly, the first sign that maybe, possibly, he was starting to realize how he sounded. That's different. How is it different? Because. He floundered for a second, then his expression hardened. Because you're being dramatic about this whole thing. You were barely pregnant. It's not like we lost an actual baby. The words hung in the air between us like poison gas. Barely pregnant. Not an actual baby. I was 12 weeks along, Marcus. I saw the heartbeat on the ultrasound. You were there. You said it looked like a little alien and you couldn't wait to teach it to play video games. Yeah, well, that was before. This is now. And now I'm saying let's just move on and stop making everything about this miscarriage thing. Miscarriage thing. Like it was a minor inconvenience instead of the loss of the future we'd planned together. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, landed. Grabbing an Uber. Be there in 45 minutes. Perfect timing. Because I was starting to understand that Jake the EMT had seen something in 30 minutes that I'd somehow missed in 3 years. And Emma was going to help me figure out exactly what I was going to do about it. My sister's coming, I said. Marcus groaned. Great. So I have to deal with Emma judging me on top of everything else. Can you at least tell her to keep it down? Some of us have important things to do. Important things. Like a video game boss fight was more important than the fact that I'd just lost our child. I walked to our bedroom, my bedroom, I was starting to think, and sat on the edge of the bed. The pregnancy test I'd taken 3 months ago was still in the drawer of my nightstand, tucked inside the little memory box I'd started making. Ultrasound pictures. The hospital bracelet for my first appointment. A tiny onesie that said Player 3 has entered the game that I'd bought as a surprise. All of it meaningless now. All of it forgotten by the man in the next room who was currently shouting at his raid team about proper spell rotations. Emma couldn't get here fast enough. Emma arrived at 12:32 p.m. with the force of a controlled hurricane. I heard her thanking the Uber driver, then her heels clicking up the stairs to our third-floor apartment. She didn't knock, she had a key from when she'd stayed with us last Christmas, back when I thought Marcus was just quirky instead of fundamentally broken. Sarah, she called out, dropping her bag by the door. In here, I said from the bedroom, where I'd been sitting in the same spot for 20 minutes, staring at that memory box. She appeared in the doorway, took one look at me, and her expression shifted into something fierce and protective. Emma had always been the stronger one, 2 years older, a successful marketing director, the kind of person who could walk into a room and immediately take charge. Right now, I'd never been more grateful for that. How are you holding up? She sat next to me on the bed, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. I don't know. Empty? Like someone scooped out everything inside me and left just the shell. From the living room came the sound of Marcus shouting at his screen, "No, you fucking moron, you're supposed to interrupt the cast. How do you not know this by now?" Emma's jaw tightened. Has he said anything to you? About the baby? About what you went through? He said it sucks and we can try again later. The words felt like ash in my mouth. And that I'm being dramatic because I was barely pregnant and it wasn't an actual baby. Emma went very still. He said what? That I'm making everything about this miscarriage thing and we should just move on. Miscarriage thing, she repeated slowly, like she was testing how the words tasted. He called losing your baby a thing. Before I could respond, Marcus's voice carried from the living room again. Sarah. Can you order Chinese food? I'm fucking starving and this boss fight is going to take at least another hour. Emma stood up. Oh, hell no. Emma, don't. But she was already walking toward the living room, and I knew that particular tone. Growing up, it was the voice that preceded Marcus getting his ass kicked at family game night or incompetent waiters getting verbally destroyed. I followed her, partly to watch and partly to make sure she didn't actually murder him. Marcus was still facing his computer, headset on, completely oblivious to the storm that had just entered his domain. Marcus, Emma said, her voice deceptively calm. Not now, Emma. We're in the middle of something important. More important than your girlfriend hemorrhaging in a hospital bed? He spun around, finally registering her presence. Look, I know you think I should have dropped everything and rushed to hold her hand, but that's not realistic. Some of us have commitments. Commitments, Emma repeated. To a video game. It's not just a video game. This is my guild, these are people depending on me. We've been planning this raid for weeks. Sarah knew that. Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. Right. So your guild, a bunch of strangers on the internet, they take priority over the woman you supposedly love losing your child. You're being dramatic too. Sarah was barely 3 months along. It's not like we had names picked out or anything. I felt something crack inside my chest. We did have names picked out. Marcus turned to stare at me. What? We had names picked out. Lily Rose if it was a girl, after your grandmother. James Marcus if it was a boy, after your dad. We talked about it 3 weeks ago while we were painting the spare room. You said you wanted the baby to have a family name. For the first time since this nightmare started, Marcus looked uncomfortable. Not remorseful, just uncomfortable, like he'd been caught in an inconsistency. That was just, theoretical discussion stuff. Theoretical. Emma's voice could have cut glass. Marcus, let me ask you something. When exactly did you stop giving a shit about Sarah? Was it gradual, or did you wake up one day and decide she was just furniture? I don't have to listen to this. He started to turn back to his computer. Actually, you do. Emma moved between him and his monitor. Because I'm not going anywhere until we have a conversation about how you sent your girlfriend to the hospital alone while she was losing your baby so you could play fucking dress up online. That's when I realized Emma wasn't just angry. She was furious in a way I'd rarely seen, the kind of controlled rage that meant someone was about to have their entire world reorganized. And Marcus had no idea what was coming. You know what, Emma? I'm done with this, Marcus said, standing up and trying to step around her to get back to his computer. Sarah's fine, the situation is handled, and I don't need some lecture from someone who doesn't even live here. Emma didn't move. Sit down, Marcus. Excuse me? I said sit down. We're going to have a real conversation, and you're going to participate like an actual adult for once in your pathetic life. Something in her tone made him pause. Emma had a way of speaking that made CEOs reconsider their budgets and stubborn clients suddenly become reasonable. But Marcus had always been too self-absorbed to recognize when he was outmatched. Whatever. I'll just play in the bedroom. He started gathering his laptop and headset. Touch that computer and I'll throw it out the window. Marcus stopped mid-reach. You can't, that's a $3,000 gaming laptop. $3,000, Emma said thoughtfully. Sarah, how much did you spend on Marcus's birthday last month? I thought about it. The collector's edition game he'd wanted, the expensive dinner at that steakhouse downtown, the weekend trip to the gaming convention in Chicago that I'd planned and paid for because he was between jobs again. About $1,200. And Christmas before that? Maybe $800? The new graphics card was expensive. I was starting to feel sick thinking about it. So in the past 4 months, you've spent $2,000 on this man. Marcus, how much did you spend on Sarah's birthday? Marcus's face flushed. We don't keep track of stuff like that. I do, I said quietly. The memory was still fresh because it had hurt so much. $27 at GameStop. You bought me a used copy of some puzzle game you said I might like, but it was really because you wanted the store credit from trading in your old games. Emma turned back to Marcus with the expression of a prosecutor who'd just gotten a confession. $27. For the woman who pays half your rent, buys your groceries, and apparently funds your hobbies. Sarah doesn't pay half the rent, Marcus said defensively. You're right, I realized, the numbers clicking into place for the first time. I pay $800 of the $1,200. And I buy all the groceries. And I paid the security deposit when we moved in because your credit was too bad to qualify. That's not. And the car insurance, I continued, momentum building. You're on my policy because it's cheaper than getting your own. And your phone is on my family plan. And I paid for Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and that expensive gaming subscription service you had to have. Emma was nodding like a teacher whose student was finally getting a lesson. So Sarah, roughly how much money would you say you've been spending on Marcus every month? I did the math in my head. Rent difference, groceries, utilities, subscriptions, random purchases. Maybe $600 or $700 extra, not counting big stuff like birthday presents or those concert tickets I bought us last summer. Marcus was looking increasingly uncomfortable. She makes more money than me. It evens out. How does it even out? Emma asked. What exactly do you contribute to this relationship? Besides your sparkling personality and evident emotional support skills? We live together. I'm here. You're physically present, Emma corrected. Like a houseplant. Except houseplants improve air quality. What do you improve, Marcus? His mouth opened and closed a few times, no sound coming out. For the first time in 3 years, I was seeing Marcus truly speechless. Here's what's going to happen, Emma said, settling onto our couch like she was planning to stay a while. We're going to make a list. Every way Sarah supports you, every dollar she spends on you, every time she's prioritized your needs over her own. Because I think it's time everyone in this room understood exactly what this relationship actually looks like. Marcus glanced toward his computer, then at me, then back at Emma. He was finally starting to realize that his comfortable little world was about to get very uncomfortable. And honestly, it was long overdue. The list took 43 minutes to compile, and with every item Emma wrote down, I felt like I was waking up from a 3-year coma. Rent difference, $400 monthly. Groceries, $350 average. Car insurance, $68. Phone, $45. Streaming services, $89. Emma's pen scratched across the legal pad she'd found in my work bag. That's already over $1,000 a month, Marcus. We haven't even gotten to the fun stuff yet. Marcus had retreated to the corner of the couch, looking increasingly like a cornered animal. This is stupid. Couples share expenses. You're right, Emma said. They do. Sarah, when's the last time Marcus paid for dinner when you went out? I tried to remember. I think he bought coffee at that little cafe near campus about 6 weeks ago. But I paid him back because I forgot my wallet. So he's never actually paid for a meal. Well, he pays sometimes when we order delivery. I want it to be fair, even now. I mean, I give him my credit card and he places the order. Emma stared at me. Sarah. That's not him paying. That's him being a human ordering system. She was right. When had I started thinking of Marcus using my money as him contributing? When had I started being grateful that he'd at least called a restaurant? What about household stuff? Emma continued. Cleaning supplies, toilet paper, that kind of thing? I handle all that. The answer came automatically. Marcus doesn't really notice when we're out of things. He doesn't notice when there's no toilet paper. I thought about all the times I'd come home to find empty rolls still on the holders, new ones sitting right in the cabinet below. He notices. He just leaves it for me to deal with. Emma added household supplies $200 per month to her list. What about chores? Cooking, cleaning, laundry? Marcus finally spoke up. I do stuff around here. Like what? I take out the trash sometimes. Sometimes, Emma repeated. Sarah, how often is sometimes? Maybe once a month? When I ask him to? Usually I just do it because it's easier than waiting. The words felt like admissions of guilt, even though I couldn't figure out what I was guilty of. So Sarah cooks, cleans, does laundry, grocery shops, pays most of the bills, and takes care of the apartment. Marcus occasionally takes trash to the dumpster when directly asked. Is that accurate? When she put it like that, it sounded insane. But it had happened so gradually, taking over one small thing at a time because Marcus was stressed about work or really busy with the guild leadership position or just forgot. Again. What about emotional support? Emma's pen was poised over the notepad. Sarah, think about the last time you had a bad day at work. What did Marcus do? I tried to remember. Last month when my boss had yelled at me in front of the entire team for a mistake that wasn't even mine. I'd come home in tears, wanting to talk it through with someone who cared about me. He said work drama was boring and asked if I could pick up his prescription while I was out. And when you got food poisoning from that sketchy sushi place in March? He stayed at his friend Tyler's house because he didn't want to catch anything. I remembered lying on the bathroom floor, alternating between fever chills and vomiting, completely alone. He came back 3 days later when I was better. Emma's pen had stopped moving. She was looking at me with a mixture of pity and rage that made my chest tight. Sarah, honey, when exactly was the last time Marcus took care of you when you needed it? I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. Then tried again. Nothing came. Because I couldn't remember a single time in 3 years when Marcus had prioritized my needs over his own comfort. Not once. The silence stretched until Marcus couldn't take it anymore. Okay, fine, I'm not perfect, he said, shifting uncomfortably. But it's not like Sarah's some helpless victim here. She chose to do those things. I never asked her to pay for everything. Emma's laugh was sharp and humorless. You never asked? Marcus, 3 months ago when your car registration was due, what happened? Marcus glanced at me nervously. I don't remember. I do, I said, the memory surfacing with painful clarity. You said your account was overdrawn and you pay me back from your next freelance check. But there was no freelance check, was there? You just never mentioned it again, and I never asked because I didn't want to seem like I was keeping score. That's different. What about when your mom's birthday was coming up? Emma pressed. Sarah, tell me about that gift. My stomach dropped. He said he wanted to get her something really special but money was tight. So I bought that expensive silk scarf she'd mentioned wanting, and Marcus gave it to her. She went on and on about how thoughtful he was. Did you ever tell her you actually picked it out and paid for it? No. It would have embarrassed him. Emma turned to Marcus, her voice deadly quiet. So you let your mother thank you for a gift your girlfriend bought, and you felt no shame about that whatsoever. Mom doesn't need to know every detail about our finances, Marcus muttered. Our finances, Emma repeated. What exactly makes them our finances, Marcus? What do you contribute to this financial partnership? He was quiet for a long moment, and I realized he was calculating, probably for the first time, what he actually brought to our relationship besides his presence and an endless capacity to consume what I provided. I do freelance web design, he said finally. How much did you make last month? Emma asked. Another pause. It was a slow month. How much, Marcus? Like, $200. $200, Emma said, writing it down. And how much did Sarah spend on you last month? Just the regular expenses we've already listed. I did the math. Around 1,000, not counting that new gaming headset he needed. 1,200, then. So Marcus, you contributed 200 and consumed 1,200. That's a net negative of $1,000. Every month. For 3 years. The numbers hung in the air like an indictment. $36,000. I've been giving Marcus $36,000 over 3 years, and that was just the regular monthly difference, not the birthday gifts, the vacations I'd planned and paid for, the concert tickets, the emergency loans that were never repaid. Money isn't everything, Marcus said weakly. You're right, Emma said. So let's talk about the other ways you contribute. Sarah's been supporting you financially, doing all the domestic work, handling all the emotional labor. What do you do for her? We hang out. We watch movies together. You mean Sarah sits with you while you play games with your headset on and she watches Netflix on her laptop? Marcus's face reddened. That's not fair. We spend time together. When was the last time you two went on a real date? That you planned and paid for? We don't need fancy dates. We're comfortable with each other. Emma looked at me. Sarah, when was the last time you felt like Marcus was actually excited to spend time with you? Like he chose you over something else he wanted to do? The question hit me like a physical blow because I couldn't answer it. Every movie we'd watched together, I'd been the one to suggest it, usually while he gamed with half his attention. Every restaurant we tried, I'd researched and chosen. Every conversation we'd had, I'd initiated. When exactly had I become so grateful for the bare minimum that I'd convinced myself crumbs were a feast? I need some air, I said, standing up abruptly. But as I headed for the door, Marcus's computer chimed with an incoming call from his guild leader. Without thinking, he reached for his headset. Emma and I watched as he automatically started to put it on, ready to abandon this conversation about our relationship for a video game. Again. He caught himself halfway, looking between us and the computer screen where I could see his guild members waiting. I should probably. He started. Take the call, Marcus, Emma said softly. Show us exactly who you are. And God help me, he did. Marcus put the headset on. He actually put the headset on and answered the call while Emma and I stood there watching him choose his game over the most important conversation of our relationship. Over my miscarriage. Over everything. Yeah, I'm here, he said into his microphone. Sorry guys, had some drama to deal with. Are we ready for attempt 15? Drama. He called my miscarriage and our relationship falling apart drama. Emma looked at me with something I'd never seen before, not just anger, but genuine bewilderment, like she was watching someone choose to set themselves on fire. Tyler, can you handle main tank this time? Jenkins was fucking up the rotation earlier. Marcus was already clicking through his spell menus, completely absorbed. Sarah, can you grab me a Coke while you're up? I stared at him. Even now, even after everything Emma had laid out, even with me standing there holding discharge papers from the hospital, he was asking me to bring him a drink while he played his game. Marcus, I said quietly. Hang on babe, we're starting the encounter. Marcus. He held up one finger, actually held up a finger to shush me, and leaned into his microphone. Okay guys, remember, DPS needs to switch targets when the ads spawn. Sarah, seriously, I'm dying of thirst here. That's when something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped, like a rubber band stretched too far. I walked to his computer and shut it off. Just reached over and held the power button until the screen went black. What the fuck? Marcus ripped off his headset. Sarah, what the hell is wrong with you? We were in the middle of a boss fight. I had a miscarriage, I said, my voice eerily calm. This morning. I lost our baby, and you told me to walk it off. We already talked about this. No, Marcus, you talked. You said it wasn't a real baby. You said I was being dramatic. You asked me to Venmo you pizza money while I was bleeding in a hospital bed. His mouth opened and closed. I didn't, that's not what I meant. What did you mean? Explain it to me. Explain how your guild members, people you've never met in real life, are more important than me hemorrhaging our child in a bathroom while you told your raid team you'd be right back. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Emma stepped forward, and I could see she was done watching this train wreck. Marcus, do you love Sarah? Of course I love her. Then why do you treat her like an unpaid servant? I don't. You do. I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Emma's right. I cook your food, clean your messes, pay your bills, and work full-time to support your gaming habit. And in return, you, what? Let me live in the same apartment where you ignore me. That's not fair, Sarah. I never asked you to do all that stuff. You never asked, I repeated slowly. Marcus, you've been unemployed for 8 months. 8 months. I've been paying for everything while you play games 14 hours a day, and you never asked? I'm between jobs. You're not looking for jobs. I've seen your browser history, Marcus. 12 hours on gaming sites for every 5 minutes on job boards. Emma was taking notes again, and I realized she was documenting everything. Sarah, how many job interviews has Marcus been on in the past 8 months? I thought about it. 2. Both for positions I found and applied for him. He said the first one was beneath him and he no-showed the second because his guild had a special event. Jesus Christ, Emma muttered, writing furiously. And when I suggested he might want to look at temp agencies or part-time work while he searched for something permanent? I continued, the words flowing now like poison I needed to get out of my system. He said temporary work was for people without skills and he couldn't compromise his professional standards. Marcus was looking increasingly cornered. I have experience, I don't need to take just anything. Your professional standards, I said, apparently don't include showing up for job interviews, updating your resume, or contributing anything to the household that feeds and shelters you. I contribute. $200 last month, Marcus. $200 while I spent $1,200 keeping you comfortable. And when I lost our baby, you were more concerned about missing a boss fight than the fact that I was hemorrhaging alone on our bathroom floor. The apartment went completely silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of Emma's pen on paper. You want to know what I realized in that hospital bed? I said. I realized that the EMT, a complete stranger, showed me more care and concern in 30 minutes than you've shown me in 3 years. He held the door, asked how I was feeling, made sure I was comfortable. And when he saw how you reacted, he looked at me and said if she were mine, I'd never let her suffer alone like this. Marcus flinched like I'd slapped him. If she were mine, I repeated. 5 words that made me understand exactly what I'd been missing. I could see the exact moment Marcus realized he was losing control of the narrative. His eyes darted between Emma's notepad and my face, like he was calculating how much damage had already been done. Okay, look, maybe I could have handled things better this morning, he said, his voice taking on that wheedling tone he used when he wanted something. But you're making it sound worse than it was. I was half asleep, I didn't understand how serious. You were playing World of Warcraft at 2:30 a.m., Marcus. You weren't asleep. And when I begged you to call 911, you told me to walk it off. I thought you were overreacting. Women complain about cramps all the time. Emma's pen stopped moving. Women complain about cramps all the time, she repeated slowly. Sarah, did you hear that? Apparently seeking medical attention during a miscarriage is just typical female complaining. That's not what I meant. What exactly did you mean? I asked. Because 3 hours later, when the paramedics saw how much blood I'd lost, they called ahead to the hospital to have a trauma team ready. But sure, I was just complaining about cramps. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know it was that bad. You didn't ask. In 8.5 hours, Marcus, you never once asked how I was doing. You asked about pizza money. You asked for Red Bull. You asked how long the hospital would take. But you never asked if I was okay. Because I knew you were fine. You were texting and stuff. I texted you once, I said, pulling out my phone to check. At 7:23 a.m. I said lost the baby. Need surgery to remove tissue. We'll be home later. And you responded. I scrolled to find his reply. Kay, can you pick up energy drinks on your way home? We're out. Emma actually gasped. He asked you to run errands on your way home from miscarriage surgery? K, I read again. That was his response to finding out our baby died. The letter K. Marcus was turning red now, whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. I'm not good with emotional stuff, okay? I don't know what you wanted me to say. How about I'm sorry for your loss? How about I love you? How about literally anything that acknowledged that something important had just died? It wasn't that important. The words exploded out of him before he could stop them. Jesus, Sarah, we weren't even trying to get pregnant. It was an accident. We never talked about having kids seriously. The silence that followed felt dangerous. An accident, I said quietly. Marcus, you cried when I showed you the ultrasound. You said you couldn't wait to teach our baby to play games. You spent an entire weekend researching car seats because you wanted to make sure we got the safest one. I was just going along with what you wanted. I thought that's what boyfriends were supposed to do. Going along with what I wanted. 3 months of what I thought was shared joy, shared planning, shared excitement about our future, and he'd been pretending the entire time. So when you talked about converting the spare room into a nursery? I figured it would make you happy. When you insisted we tell your parents at Sunday dinner? You seemed excited about it. When you bought that onesie that said Future Gamer and left it on my pillow as a surprise? Marcus went very quiet. I thought, look, it seemed like what couples do, okay? I was trying to be supportive. Trying to be supportive, Emma said, her voice deadly calm, of a pregnancy you didn't actually want, for a baby you didn't consider real, with a woman you apparently see as a live-in ATM and housekeeper. That's not. Marcus, I interrupted, if you didn't want the baby, why didn't you just say that 3 months ago? He looked down at his hands. Because you were so happy. And I thought maybe I'd feel different once it was actually here. The truth of it hit me like a freight train. Not only had he abandoned me during the worst moment of my life, he'd been lying about wanting our future together for months. The admission hung in the air like smoke. 3 months of lies. 3 months of me building dreams while he just went along with it. So when I lost the baby, I said slowly, working through the implications, you were actually relieved. Marcus's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, I whispered. That's why you weren't upset. You weren't grieving because you never wanted it in the first place. Sarah. That's why you could go back to your game. That's why you told me to walk it off. Because to you, this wasn't a tragedy. It was a convenient solution to a problem you were too much of a coward to address. Emma was staring at Marcus like he was something she'd found stuck to her shoe. You let her suffer alone through losing a baby you were secretly hoping she'd lose anyway. I never said I hoped. You didn't have to say it. The words came out louder than I intended. God, Marcus, I was devastated this morning. I thought I was mourning alone, but really I was mourning alone because the father of my baby was celebrating. I wasn't celebrating. You ordered pizza. Multiple pizzas. You had a fucking feast while I was bleeding out our child. I was standing now, pacing, 3 years of suppressed frustration finally finding its voice. You know what? I'm glad it's dead too now, because I can't imagine bringing a baby into this nightmare of a relationship where their father sees them as an inconvenience to his gaming schedule. The words hit the air and I immediately wanted to take them back. Not because they weren't true, but because saying them out loud made everything real in a way it hadn't been before. You don't mean that, Marcus said quietly. Don't I? Marcus, you've spent 3 years showing me exactly how little I matter to you. Did you really think I'd want to raise a child with someone who can't even be bothered to pause a video game while I hemorrhage on our bathroom floor? Emma's phone buzzed and she glanced at it. Sarah, we need to talk. Privately. She shot a meaningful look toward the bedroom. Whatever you want to say, you can say in front of me, Marcus said, but there was something nervous in his voice now. Actually, I can't. Emma stood up, gathering her legal pad. Because what I want to discuss involves legal advice, and you're not my client. Legal advice. The words sent a chill through the room. What kind of legal advice? I asked. The kind that protects women from men who abandon them during medical emergencies and then try to gaslight them into thinking they're overreacting. Marcus went pale. You can't be serious. Sarah, you're not actually going to let your sister turn this into some legal thing, are you? I looked at him, really looked at him. 3 years of my life. $36,000. Countless hours of cooking, cleaning, organizing, supporting, cheerleading, and enabling. And when I needed him most, when our baby died and I was alone and scared and bleeding, he told me to walk it off so he could play a video game. Emma, I said, what kind of legal advice are we talking about? She smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. The kind that ensures Marcus here understands the real-world consequences of his choices. Starting with that leash you're both on. Both on? I frowned. Emma, my name is the only one on the lease. Marcus couldn't qualify because of his credit score. Even better, she said. Marcus, I hope you have somewhere to stay tonight. The color drained completely from his face. Sarah, you can't just kick me out. I live here. Actually, Emma said, consulting something on her phone, in this state, she absolutely can. Especially when there's documented evidence of emotional abuse during a medical crisis. Emotional abuse? Marcus's voice cracked. That's insane. I never hit her. Abuse isn't just physical, Marcus. And thanks to your performance this morning, we have hospital staff who witnessed your behavior. EMTs who can testify about your response to a medical emergency. Documentation of abandonment during a trauma. I stared at Emma, realizing she'd been building a case this entire time. Every question about money, every detail about his behavior, every note on that legal pad, it wasn't just for my enlightenment. You planned this, I said. I plan to protect my sister from a man who's been using her for 3 years and abandoned her during a miscarriage. The specific legal strategies we discuss will depend on how cooperative Marcus is feeling about leaving quietly. Marcus looked between us, panic finally replacing his earlier irritation. Sarah, come on. We can work this out. We can go to counseling or something. Don't let Emma blow this out of proportion. Out of proportion. Even now, he was telling me I was overreacting. Marcus, I said quietly, pack your things. Marcus didn't move. He just sat there staring at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. I'm not packing anything, he said finally. This is my home too. You can't just decide to end a 3-year relationship because you're upset about losing a baby that was probably going to ruin our lives anyway. The words hit me like a physical slap. Emma's pen stopped moving entirely. What did you just say? My voice came out barely above a whisper. I said what I said. Look, I'm sorry you're sad, but maybe this is actually a good thing. We're not ready for kids. I'm between jobs, you're barely making enough to support both of us as it is, and a baby would have just made everything harder. Barely making enough to support both of us, I repeated. Marcus, I make $73,000 a year. You make maybe $2,000 if you actually try. I'm not barely supporting us, I'm entirely supporting us while you cosplay as a professional gamer. That's not fair. What's not fair is that I've been subsidizing your Peter Pan fantasy for 3 years while you contribute absolutely nothing. I could feel something shifting inside me, like a locked door finally opening. Emma, what did you mean about the lease? She consulted her phone again. Well, since you're the only legal tenant and Marcus has no documented right to occupancy, you can terminate his residency with 24 hours notice. But given his behavior during your medical emergency, we might be able to argue for immediate removal under the domestic violence statute. Domestic violence? Marcus shot to his feet. That's completely insane. I never touched her. Emotional abuse during a medical crisis, Emma said calmly. Abandonment during trauma. Financial exploitation. And now verbal abuse regarding pregnancy loss. We have witnesses, Marcus. Medical professionals who saw how you treated Sarah this morning. Marcus's face was cycling through emotions, confusion, anger, fear. Sarah, you know me. I'm not some abusive asshole. I just handle stress differently than you do. How exactly do you handle stress, Marcus? The question came out sharper than I intended. Because from where I'm sitting, your stress management technique involves making me handle everything while you escape into a fantasy world. That's not, I contribute in other ways. Name one. We live together. I provide companionship. Emma snorted. Companionship. Marcus, when was the last time you had a real conversation with Sarah? Not about what you needed or wanted, but about her life, her feelings, her day? The silence stretched long enough to become uncomfortable. See, that's the thing about emotional abusers, Emma continued, her voice taking on that prosecutor tone again. They don't see their victims as actual people. Sarah isn't your girlfriend, Marcus, she's your unpaid personal assistant who occasionally provides sex and always provides money. Stop twisting everything around. Marcus was getting agitated now, pacing in the small space between the couch and his computer setup. Sarah chose to do those things. I never forced her to pay for my stuff or clean up after me. You're right, I said, and both of them looked at me in surprise. I did choose to do those things. Because I loved you, and I thought that's what love looked like, taking care of someone even when they don't take care of you back. Marcus's expression softened slightly. Exactly. Sarah gets it. But I was wrong, I continued. Love isn't supposed to be one-sided. It's not supposed to leave me exhausted and empty and wondering why I'm never enough to make you happy. You do make me happy. No, Marcus. Your video games make you happy. Your guild makes you happy. I just make your happiness possible by paying for everything and asking for nothing in return. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Jake from the ambulance this morning. Just checking in to make sure you're doing okay. Sometimes the emotional impact hits harder later. A complete stranger, someone who'd spent 30 minutes with me during the worst morning of my life, cared enough to check on me. Meanwhile, the man I'd been supporting for 3 years was arguing about whether abandoning me during a miscarriage counted as abuse. The contrast was so stark it actually made me laugh, though there was no humor in it. You know what, Marcus? Pack your things. You have until tomorrow at noon. And if I don't? I looked at Emma, then back at him. Then we find out exactly how seriously the police take emotional abuse cases. Marcus stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him calculating. 3 years of having someone else handle all the difficult parts of life, and now he was facing the possibility of actually having to take care of himself. You're not serious, he said finally. Sarah, where am I supposed to go? I don't have money for a deposit on a new place. That's not my problem anymore. It is your problem. We're together. We've been together for 3 years. His voice was getting higher, more desperate. You can't just throw me out because you're having some kind of emotional breakdown. Emma's pen started moving again. Emotional breakdown. Got it. Sarah, come on. Marcus switched tactics, his voice becoming softer, more manipulative. I know I messed up this morning. I was tired, I wasn't thinking clearly. But we can fix this. We can work on communication. Communication, I repeated. Marcus, you told me our baby wasn't real. You asked me to Venmo you pizza money while I was having surgery. What exactly are we going to communicate about? I'll do better. I'll get a real job, I'll help out more around here. Just don't do something crazy that we'll both regret. The only thing I regret, I said, surprised by how calm I sounded, is waiting 3 years to have this conversation. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from an unknown number. I answered without thinking. Sarah? This is Dr. Martinez from Methodist General. I wanted to follow up and see how you're doing. Also, I realized I forgot to give you some information about the employee assistance program we have for situations like yours. Employee assistance program? Counseling services, support groups, legal advocacy if needed. Sometimes women in your situation need more than just medical care. Her voice was gentle but pointed. Is there a safe place you can stay while you recover? Someone who can help take care of you? I glanced at Marcus, who was listening to every word with growing alarm. Actually, yes. My sister's here, and we're making some changes to my living situation. Good. That's very good. Sarah, I want you to know that what you went through this morning, both medically and personally, was traumatic. Don't let anyone minimize that. After I hung up, the apartment felt different. Like the walls had shifted somehow. A doctor called to check on you, Marcus said slowly. That's not normal, is it? No, Emma said, still taking notes. It's not normal. Medical professionals don't usually make personal follow-up calls unless they're concerned about a patient's safety. Safety from what? From situations like this, Marcus. From partners who abandon them during medical crises and then gaslight them about it. Marcus sank back onto the couch, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely scared. Sarah, I swear I didn't understand how serious this morning was. If I had known. You did know. The words came out flat, matter of fact. I told you I was bleeding. I told you something was wrong. I begged you to call 911. You knew, Marcus. You just didn't care enough to act. That's not true. Then why didn't you come to the hospital? Even after the paramedics explained what was happening, even after they loaded me into an ambulance, why didn't you follow? Why didn't you call to check on me? Why didn't you ask a single question about my condition in 8 hours? Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. Because we both knew the answer. He'd gone back to his game. 24 hours, Marcus, I said quietly. Starting now. The next hour was a blur of Marcus frantically making phone calls while Emma and I sat at the kitchen table, her legal pad now 3 pages deep with documented evidence of 3 years of financial and emotional exploitation. Tyler? Hey man, I need a huge favor. Marcus paced behind his computer setup, his voice taking on that wheedling tone I'd heard 1,000 times when he wanted something. I need to crash at your place for a few days. Sarah's having some kind of breakdown and, what? No, dude, I can't explain right now. Emma glanced up from her notes. Tyler's not available? Apparently Tyler's girlfriend said no more house guests after Marcus spent 2 weeks on their couch last summer eating their food and hugging their TV, I said, remembering the awkward conversation I'd had with Tyler's girlfriend Lisa about Marcus's extended visit. Last summer when you thought he was helping Tyler move, Emma clarified. Right. Turns out he just got tired of our apartment because the Wi-Fi was slow for 3 days. Another lie I'd somehow rationalized at the time. Marcus had convinced me he was being a good friend, helping with a difficult relocation. Really he just wanted better internet for his gaming. Marcus tried his brother next. Derek? It's Marcus. Listen, I'm in a weird situation and I need, oh. Yeah, I know Mom's visiting, but, okay, I get it. He hung up looking increasingly desperate. Derek's not available either? I asked. Mom's staying there while her kitchen gets renovated. Marcus's voice was getting tighter. Look, Sarah, this is insane. Where exactly am I supposed to go with less than 24 hours notice? The same place you suggested I go this morning when I was hemorrhaging, Emma said without looking up from her writing. Walk it off, figure it out. Marcus tried 4 more people, his cousin Jake, his friend Brett from college, even his old roommate from 2 years ago. Each conversation followed the same pattern, initial optimism followed by increasingly creative excuses. Brett was between apartments. Jake's wife was 7 months pregnant and they needed the space. His old roommate hung up when Marcus mentioned needing to stay indefinitely until things blew over. This is ridiculous, Marcus said after the 7th rejection. I can't be homeless because you're having emotional problems about a miscarriage. Emma's pen stopped moving. Did you just call your girlfriend's grief over losing your baby emotional problems? I meant, that's not what Sarah, you know what I meant. But I was starting to realize I'd been interpreting Marcus's words charitably for 3 years, always giving him the benefit of the doubt he'd never earned and definitely didn't deserve. Actually, I think you meant exactly what you said. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. Emma, add that to the list. Marcus called my miscarriage grief emotional problems at 2:47 p.m. on the day I lost our baby. You're documenting this? Marcus stared at me like I'd grown a second head. We're documenting everything, Emma confirmed. Your words, your behavior, your complete lack of empathy or responsibility. Just in case you decide to make this difficult. Make what difficult? Your exit from Sarah's life. Emma's voice was matter of fact, like she was discussing the weather. See, Marcus, here's what you don't understand. Sarah's been your meal ticket for 3 years. But meal tickets can be cancelled. My phone rang again. This time it was my mom. Hi, sweetie, Emma told me what happened. How are you holding up? I glanced at Marcus, who was listening intently. It's been a really hard day, Mom. I can't imagine. Losing a baby is devastating enough without, she paused. Emma mentioned Marcus wasn't very supportive? That's one way to put it. I walked toward the bedroom for privacy, but Marcus followed me. Sarah, don't let them poison your mom against me, he whispered urgently. You know how your family gets when they think someone hurt you. He was right. My family was protective, sometimes overly so. But as I looked at Marcus, unshaven, wearing the same clothes he'd had on yesterday, surrounded by empty energy drink cans and pizza boxes while I dealt with the aftermath of losing our baby, I realized their protective instincts might be better calibrated than I'd given them credit for. Mom, I said, loud enough for Marcus to hear clearly. Marcus told me to walk off my miscarriage so he could keep playing video games. When the paramedics came, he asked how long it would take because he was in the middle of something important. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. Then, put Emma back on the phone, honey. Your father and I need to have a conversation with her about something. Marcus had gone very, very pale. The conversation with my parents lasted 12 minutes. I could hear my dad's voice through the phone from across the room, not the words, but the tone. The same tone he'd used when he'd caught my high school boyfriend trying to pressure me into sex at 16. When I handed the phone back to Emma, Marcus was sitting on our bed with his head in his hands. Your dad's driving down, Emma announced. He'll be here by 7. Your dad? Marcus looked up, panicked. Sarah, why is your dad coming here? My father was a retired Marine Corps sergeant who'd spent 25 years teaching young men how to be better than they thought possible. He had very strong opinions about men who failed to protect the women they claimed to love. Probably wants to meet the man who told his daughter to walk off a miscarriage, I said. Marcus shot to his feet. Okay, this is getting out of hand. I'll pack some stuff and stay at a motel for a few days until everyone calms down. Good plan, Emma said. Except you don't have money for a motel, do you, Marcus? The look on his face confirmed what we all knew. His last freelance check had gone to video game purchases and energy drinks. He was completely financially dependent on me, right down to the clothes on his back that I bought him. Sarah, come on. We can work this out. I know I screwed up, but ending a 3-year relationship over one bad morning is crazy. One bad morning, I repeated. Marcus, this wasn't one bad morning. This was you showing me exactly who you've been all along. My phone buzzed with another text from Jake the EMT. Hey, I hope this isn't weird, but I couldn't stop thinking about what happened this morning. That guy you live with, is he always like that? Because what I saw wasn't normal. I showed the text to Emma, who immediately started typing on her phone. What are you doing? Marcus asked nervously. Asking Jake if he'd be willing to provide a witness statement about what he observed this morning. Emma didn't look up from her screen. Professional medical personnel make excellent witnesses in court. Court? Marcus's voice cracked. What court? Sarah, you're not actually going to. Sue you for 3 years of financial support? Probably not worth the legal fees. Emma's phone chimed. But Jake says he'd be happy to document what he witnessed. Apparently you made quite an impression. Marcus started throwing clothes into a duffel bag with increasing desperation. This is insane. All of this is insane. Sarah, I made some mistakes, but I'm not some monster. We live together, we've been planning a future. No, I interrupted. I've been planning a future. You've been playing video games while I paid for the privilege of dreaming about us. At 4:23 p.m., Marcus finally admitted defeat. He stood in our living room, my living room, with 2 garbage bags of belongings, looking around like he couldn't believe it was real. I still think you're making a huge mistake, he said. When you're thinking clearly again, you'll realize we had something good. I looked at this man I'd supported, enabled, and loved for 3 years. This man who'd let me hemorrhage alone on our bathroom floor while he played games. Who'd called our dead baby not real and my grief emotional problems. You're right, Marcus. We did have something good. I walked to the door and opened it. I had something good. You just took it. He paused in the doorway, bags in hand, looking back like he expected me to change my mind. The EMT was right, I said quietly. If you were his, he'd never let me suffer alone. Marcus left without another word. An hour later, my dad arrived with a truck to change the locks. And for the first time in 3 years, I fell asleep in my own bed without the sound of video games echoing through the apartment. The next morning, I woke up to silence. Real silence, not the artificial quiet of someone trying not to disturb a gamer. I made coffee without calculating whether we had enough for 2 people. I used the good mugs without worrying about leaving any clean ones for Marcus. At 9:15 a.m., Jake texted again. I know this is forward, but I keep thinking about yesterday. If you ever want to talk to someone who actually gives a damn, I make pretty good coffee. I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about the difference between a man who holds doors during the worst morning of your life and a man who won't pause a video game while you lose his baby. Then I texted back, I'd like that. Tomorrow? Tomorrow's perfect. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I believed that it actually would be.